But hello, everybody. Welcome to our Actionism Spotlight on focusing on zero waste parties. We've got Charlotte, Mason-Kerr and Isabelle Mack here with us today from Party Kit Network, which is Isabelle, and No Crap Parties, which is Charlotte. And Gavin, who you can see in your top left there, it's Gavin's birthday today, everybody. So it's very fitting, and it was pure coincidence that we organised this party-related call for today. But yeah, it's Gav's birthday, so we shall all send him virtual cake. And I had a ginger nut biscuit in your honour. So Gav and I are going to kind of co-host this call today. Do feel free to drop in the chat where you are, talk between yourselves, add questions in the chat. So we will talk a little bit about the journey these guys have been on in setting up their movements, kind of some of the challenges that they have faced. They've got some really interesting experiences and tips to make setting up a community like this easier, but also being really open and honest about the challenges that they're facing, because I think it's important that we acknowledge that this work is not easy and support each other in that. And hopefully we will find at least one action for everybody to go away at the end of today's call. So shall we start with you, Isabelle? You've been doing Party Kit Network a little bit longer than Charlotte has been running No Crap Parties. So do you want to just talk us through kind of what we call them at Actionism, your aha moment? So the moment where you realised something needed to change.
Yes, well, I call them ripples, but so my ripple started with in 2018. My friend posted about her plastic-free toilet roll delivery on Facebook, and I was like, why is she getting her loo roll delivered? That's ridiculous. And that led me on a journey. So a year later, I listened to Jen Gale's Sustainability podcast about a party kit in Frome, and at the time, my eldest was just turned 2, and I was like, oh, a party kit is a really easy way to avoid waste. As a parent who's about to launch into the party phase, I was like, this is a brilliant idea. Are more people doing this? Is there one near me? How do I connect with them? And that's basically the problem I've been trying to solve ever since. So I just posted in my local Facebook group for parents, like, does anyone know if there's a party kit near here? And someone pointed me in the direction of one about 20 minutes away. So I did a call with them to find out what they were doing. And then it just it's been very organic. So I'd like to say it sort of snowballed from there, really.
With that, you said it took about a year from the first, first realization that there was an issue to actually taking some action. It's an amazing story, and your story goes, like, I know all about it. More goes into this incredible space where you've built this network that's really global. But I guess at the minute I'm really interested in what happened in that year that like made you think, like I can do something about this action, like this problem, like all this single-use plastic and single-use stuff. What happened?
Looking back, I had always been quite environmentally conscious, and particularly around waste, and I think that's because my mum grew up on an island where what you do with waste is very clear. And certainly as a child, the minute that we had access to recycling, like we had all our bins set up in the kitchen so we could put our plastic bottles in, way ahead of having curbside collection in the UK. And then I think with my friend's post about the plastic-free loo roll, I think I had been aware that people were talking about that plastic was a bad thing. And I'd heard about things like the Blue Planet thing, but I hadn't watched it. And I think when I sat down and was like, I'm going to find out more about this, I was so shocked. I just couldn't believe that it'd been allowed to happen. And I think I'd been in that space where I just thought, oh, the people in charge will be doing something about this because they know that it's not good for the planet. And then when I realised that isn't happening always, I first set out to look at where can I make changes at home. So getting rid of as much single-use plastic as we could just in the family. And then I went on to cutting down on waste, and that's when I discovered Jen Gale's Sustainability podcast. But I think I didn't set out to set up a network. I didn't think that I would still be talking about reusable plates 6 years later. I just wanted to solve a problem, and I had the skills from my background in e-commerce in order to help people who are planning a party connect with their local party kit. And like, I can create a website and I can do online community management and content and the artwork, like all those skills I had from my corporate career, and I was able to transfer them into this thing that grew really quickly. So I think it was in the end of June that I listened to the podcast, and by the end of August we had 40 members, and by that Christmas we had 250. So it grew really quickly, to the point where I didn't actually really know what we were doing or where we were going with it. And somewhat fortunately, that was just before the pandemic hit. So actually, when we then had to pack away all our party kits, it gave me time to pause and think about what is it we're trying to do, what's important, how should we be structured, how do we operate, and that's when we registered as a CIC. But that, yeah, it was a journey that I think, from the understanding more about what the issue actually was, realizing that if we want change, we've got to make that change. We've got to take that action, and then looking at where I have skills and expertise that I could repurpose, if you like, to solve this problem.
And when you started, oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I can see Charlotte nodding along there, and I wonder if, so we can kind of cross-pollinate these conversations. Charlotte, would you just give us a little rundown of your journey as well, and then we can bring you in on each other's conversations, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many things that you just said, Isabelle, that really ring a bell with me in terms of my own experience. So yeah, it's nice to hear how it all evolved for you. So my daughter's nearly 5, and I think, like lots of people, when you have kids, you sort of, your mind goes to the future and what their future is going to be like. And I'd always considered myself quite environmentally conscious, and that I felt like I was relatively sustainable, but I think I've realised that I actually wasn't really. So when I went back after maternity leave after having Heidi, I thought, right, I want to kind of educate myself, and I'd seen this volunteering opportunity. I'd not long since moved up to Cumbria, and I saw that the local sustainability organisation that used to be called Cumbria Action for Sustainability is now called Future Proof Cumbria. They were looking for climate champions, and as part of that, they were going to do climate literacy training. So I thought, I've actually got some time, I'm going to do this. And that was my big wake-up call. I remember asking in that training, how long until this all happens? Because obviously we often hear about things that are in the future, but that future is never really defined, as in, when is this thing going to actually happen? And obviously we know that lots of things are happening now, but basically this woman said, in 30 years' time, this is a very real possibility, this quite gloomy picture that she'd painted. And I was like, oh my God, that's when my kids are going to be my age. Like, that's terrifying. So that's what really spurred me into wanting to do something. And through that volunteering, I organised some toy swaps. And I've done that now for the last 4 years. And I kind of wanted to do more, and I wasn't really sure what that more was. But conversations with friends with older children about the parties that they'd been to, the party bags, the cost, the amount of junk that ends up in their house, those seem to keep coming up. And then about this time last year, I went to a friend's daughter's party for her 4th birthday. And these friends consider themselves to be quite sustainable as well. They don't fly, they're very relatively conscious, yet they still gave out a party bag full of plastic tat. And that was kind of the final straw for me. I was like, actually, this is the problem. This is the problem that I think I can try and help solve, because similar to Isabelle, I've got a background, I'm a marketer, I'm a marketing consultant still. So I can do all of the things like make a website, all of the content and everything. And I thought, yeah, do you know what? I think this is a way I can flex my marketing muscles in a slightly different and more exciting and interesting way. And a problem that I think I'm happy to sort of stand on a soapbox about, because I think, we'll probably come to this, but, there's the worry about being held up to scrutiny and called a hypocrite and all of that kind of thing. But this is something I 100% am happy to stand up and shout about. And, there's other things I do, like I do fly sometimes and that kind of thing. But this is, a firm line on this. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
And what is the scale of what you're doing now, Charlotte? How many people?
Well,
people signing the pact?
when I've just set a goal of 10,000 signatures. We're quite a long way off that. We're not far off 1,000, but we're about to hit 10,000 followers on Instagram, which is super exciting. And obviously, I want people to be signing the pact, but it's really difficult. I know this is a marketer, getting people to come to a website and fill out a form. So I'm trying not to obsess too much over the pact numbers and thinking about more about what's the reach that we're having and the conversations that, you know, are happening. And like you said, Isabelle, the ripples, what are those ripples? And the more stories I hear back from people, I keep getting messages most days from people about parties that they've had and the positive feedback from the parents that have been to those parties. And so I know there's a lot more going on beyond those people who've signed the pact. So yeah, I don't know how many people it's reached, but lots.
I think that's really interesting in the space that we're all kind of like working, and like the idea of actionism, like we grapple with it a lot, is like the impact of the work. And in some cases it's, you know, the numbers may seem quite small, but actually the ripple effect and knowing that the conversations are happening that might otherwise not be happening, I think it's really important. So Isabelle, can we bring you in on that? Like, have you found a similar kind of challenge in your work with the impact? I know you've got some quite big numbers, haven't you, in terms of like items saved?
I'd say one challenge is getting people to let me know the impact. So the impact numbers that I report each year are probably massively conservative. But I think there's another element to that, and like Charlotte was saying with the ripples, so I know there's people who set up party kits who haven't joined the network, and that might be because they run it just within their school community or whatever reason, but that's okay, like, because they're still avoiding the waste, and that's what I set out to do. It isn't necessary to have loads of pins on a map. I think there's the other part that we were talking about where it can influence a behaviour change. So particularly with party kits that are hosted by sharing libraries, quite often someone discovered their local sharing library because they were looking for a party kit. So Share Bristol shared with me that they quite often get new members join because they were first looking for a party kit. So then they've gone on to borrow more things or share more things. And so although there's like the instant impact of borrowing a party kit, avoiding waste, or setting a party kit up and helping your community avoid waste, there's so many more elements to it than that, and I think, and that's really hard to measure, but that's okay, I think.
Yeah. And thank you, Isabelle. And Charlotte, on that, so talking about like one action leading to another, I know that like your first and I guess most accessible kind of action is like committing to like no tat in party bags, but can you just talk us through the other kind of ripples, the other parts of the pact that you've got?
Yeah, sure. So there's 3 parts, and importantly, people don't have to sign up to all 3. I wanted it to be really accessible because I know that for some people some of these things might be a step too far for them right now, but hopefully next year maybe they'll sort of rethink that. So there's not giving out plastic tat and party bags, basically. So ideally secondhand, homemade, or if you are going to buy new, something more sustainable. Then there's giving gift guidance, and I think this one's really important, and it's quite a cultural challenge, but it applies to all things, including things like Christmas. But yeah, on an invite, just giving some gift guidance, either to let people off the hook and say no gifts necessary, which might be really helpful for people if they can't actually afford all of this stuff, or to just encourage secondhand or, you know, a donation towards something. And then the third thing is when you're giving a gift, to just do it in a more sustainable way. So ideally pre-loved, homemade, secondhand, or an experience or something. But the part, so I mean, most people tick all 3 boxes. But there are a few people who don't go for the gift guidance or the giving stuff. But the party bags is by far the easiest thing for people to agree to, because it's such a bugbear for most parents.
Does that bring us on to like, I guess it segues into like the societal pressure, I guess, of like, so you were saying some things are easier for people to kind of to sign up to, and I guess it's the same with the party kit network. Like, do you find that both of you, like, is it difficult to kind of be that person that is taking that action first, and within a friendship group, like, do your friends feel like you're judging them, and like, has that stopped you? Charlotte, do you want to go first?
For me, I would say my friends my close friends, I feel it's fine because they know me and I know them, and so I think they know enough about who I am to know that I'm not judging them or other people, and or maybe I am, but only in a nice way. Yeah, so my friends wise, it's not a problem. I think where it becomes really challenging is things like the school group, because like my daughter's only just started school and I only know one other parent in that class, and so suddenly I'm trying to engage with people who don't know anything about me, and so they're going to be coming, if I when I say things, that's what they're going to be judging who I am about, regardless of anything else. And so it does feel like a real kind of tricky balance, trying to share things in a way that doesn't sort of pigeonhole you, or people are going to put you in some form of box, but yeah, and just being sensitive because I don't know any of their situations either. So it's challenging, and yeah, a bit scary.
You had a really nice tip you shared with Gav and I the other day about like how to, particularly within like a WhatsApp group, how you first approached this within your daughter's class. Would you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So obviously new WhatsApp group, a load of people I don't know, and I was like, I've been telling everyone on Instagram and stuff that they've got to share this with their WhatsApp group, so I've got to do it. Obviously, I can't just not do it. And I did feel nervous about it, but what I did was I spoke to my friend who their child's also in the same class, and I said, I'm going to send this message, like, can you have a look at it and check that you think it's okay, just as a second set of eyes. And then I didn't actually have to ask her to do this, but I could have done. She was like, yes, great, you send it, and then I'll send a message off the back of it. So I knew that I had somebody in that group who was going to follow up straight away with like a positive, supportive message. And she did a toy swap for her daughter's birthday last year. And she put gift guidance on her little boy's birthday this year. So yeah, she responded positively. And it just gave me the confidence to know that it wasn't going to be complete tumbleweed and silence. And there were some likes and thumbs up. Most people didn't respond, but I think that is just the nature of these things. So yeah, that's definitely a tip I would advise, is find somebody else, a friend or an ally, to kind of get them lined up to chime in. And I think, psychologically, when people don't know each other, everybody's being quiet, waiting to see what the group consensus is. So I think if you are going to share something, don't take silence as a negative. It's just that most other people in that group don't have the confidence to say what they really think. And the reality is probably most of them agree with you, but they don't want to be the odd one out. They're just going to leave you hanging there being that person. So yeah, I think tell yourself that actually most people are just nodding in agreement quietly, because they probably are.
I can agree with that, because I think after meeting you, or after coming across the movement, and before I actually met you, I was my daughter's 10th birthday, and I did some gift guidance on her invite with her like agreement, and we decided to ask for like if people wanted to bring something for a small contribution towards a paddleboard that she wanted to save up for, and we put it on the WhatsApp as like a follow-on, and every single person that came to the party, it's like their responses were like, this is such a great idea, why don't we all do this? And it was just this resounding kind of like, wow, what a brilliant idea. It was your idea, obviously not mine, but yeah, there was just people felt like they'd kind of been given permission to think about it differently. But I also, I think I said to you, Charlotte, like I did feel like I had to apologize. I was a bit like, I hope no one's offended by us giving you this guidance. And there is that kind of like, I don't know whether we're brought up thinking that asking for money or asking for something different to what people want to do in relation to gifts and giving is difficult. But Isabelle, have you had any similar challenges in terms of your like how this has been received with the school networks or anything?
I think the change with switching from disposables to reusables is a slightly easier one when it comes to society expectations. There's obviously people who prefer disposables because they think it's easier. They think it's cleaner sometimes, which is quite hard to believe. But on the whole, for most people, you're getting a better quality product, and also you get everything you need. And I think so. There's more benefit than just avoiding waste. So in that sense, it is a kind of easier, less awkward sell than gift guidance, for example. When you're discussing the putting things on the invites and giving gift guidance and deciding what to do about party bags, I very much have experienced that. And I know, so my son, we've done no gift parties for the last 3 years. And it's been interesting to see the response, but then also the people who have then also done it for their children. So I think there's still, even if they say to you, oh yes, that's a really good idea, to then actually make the step to then go on to give their own gift guidance, it still takes guts, like, to go against what is the social norm at the moment. So yeah, I very much resonate with that.
I think as well, like, the other thing is it takes guts because of the worry about other parents, but people also completely understandably are just really scared of disappointing their children. And I think that's, like, fair enough to do no gift guidance. And I think it's brilliant to do that because that's obviously the least waste, least clutter, least money option. But I think, I don't want people to think of the kids' party pact and no crap parties as like a no gifts ever, no gifts allowed kind of Scroogey thing, because gifting is a really nice thing and it can be done in a way that's way more sustainable and doesn't bring in loads of stuff into your house. I think it's like, how do we reframe it in people's minds to not be thinking about taking anything away from their children, but actually just giving their children a better experience.
I think also to give them options. So we first did it when my son turned 6, and so the previous year had been his first birthday party that he'd had with friends, and I said, oh, let's just have gifts because we just come out of COVID and he just got a new baby sister, so it was all a bit much to then go, oh, you can't have presents. So the following year we talked about what that was like, and then we agreed that he would ask for no presents, but that people could contribute up to a certain amount towards Hot Wheels, which was actually a massive mistake because it turns out you can buy an awful lot of secondhand Hot Wheels off Facebook Marketplace. So in following years, we've done experiences, so like money towards Legoland tickets or something like that. And then next month is my daughter's 4th birthday party, so it was the first one she's having. And I thought it'd be a much harder sell with her, getting her on board with it. But yeah, so we've given people the option of what else they can do instead of giving gifts. So would you like to make a card for her, or do you want to give it up to £1 to go to find a charity shop treasure? So it's kind of, yes, I definitely understand that we don't want to suck all the joy out of parties, but I think by just being clearer, like, rather than having an ambiguity about it, just means that people can be more comfortable with what you're asking.
Definitely. And it just takes the guesswork out, doesn't it? Because I think a lot of the mental load of the stress for parents is like, oh, how much should I spend? Like, is this appropriate? Do I look stingy? Like, what did they give us? And all of that kind of thing. And it's, yeah, if you're just clear and then get people to believe you that you really mean it.
Yeah.
I find the piece personally of communicating this kind of stuff to friends and family in person really, really difficult. It's not something I enjoy doing or actually put myself in a position to do very often. I've definitely got a big fear around it. I found with the community space in Bozell at One Tree at a time that because there's a space that feels a bit safer and there's an action happening, it feels like it leads into a conversation in a way that's a lot smoother and a lot easier. And I feel the same about what's happening here. Like when you're handing over a party kit to someone else in your community, it's a very, very kind of safe space to just start that conversation, which is like much easier than putting a message on WhatsApp and going, well, I don't think we should do this, or I'm feeling like this. So I think the action part of what you're doing is incredibly important to give people those routes into taking some steps straight away. That's simple. Have you got examples of people responding to that and going into taking bigger actions or growing? I know with your stuff, Isabelle, people obviously start their own kit and they encourage other people to do stuff, but do you see other stuff on the back of it?
Yeah, so with party kits, so I think Tasha in the island of Jersey is probably my best example of that. So she started with 30 cups and 30 plates in a box. She went out to her community. She was already quite involved in the Zero Waste Jersey group, but she went out and said, like, if you have leftover party equipment, like, donate it to me, and then you can borrow it again. So very quickly her house became overwhelmed with party decor and like furniture, all sorts of things. But she's now set up as a charity. They have a dedicated space which has like so much it's basically a party library, and she has an army of volunteers that help her. Last year she did 49,000 items went out, and it's sprung other things. So they have like a crafting workshop they run there. So it's become a community hub, and that's just from having some plates and some cups. Yeah. Not everybody's journey is like that, but that is one of my favourites.
That's some good ripples.
Yes.
That's amazing. I would say I don't have huge visibility on, you know, things that people are doing, but I think that once somebody signs the pact and they're kind of thinking about the gift guidance and everything, theory would say it's going to knock on to how they gift in all occasions, hopefully, and also, you know, triggering other thoughts about their parties. Like, I mean, we send an email before somebody's child's birthday to say, like, have you hired a party kit? Go and check out the party kit network. You know, what are you going to do for food? And here are some other things that you can do, as well as just the gifting, just to try and nudge them in the right direction with all of the other stuff. And I think there's quite a lot of research, isn't there, around once you start taking small actions, you start to then think about all of the other things that you do, and that it kind of spreads through your life. So that's the hope anyway. But yeah, I don't have huge insight into what people are doing beyond, but I have faith that it's happening.
In terms of like, you both just talked about community a little bit there. Could you just talk a little bit about like how you have managed, or how you plan to manage, like building a community around your movements? Because obviously, yeah, I think Isabelle, you're sort of alluding to there. It's quite important to kind of have that network of people to support each other. How does that work within Party Kit Network?
Yeah, so it's kind of works at two levels. So there's the kind of the network level community, so the members, so they're the people that run party kits, and we started with that long before, probably a few weeks before we had the website, and it was actually the suggestion of someone who had a party kit saying, oh, we should have a group, that kind of actually grew the network into what it is. And I think then the groups are really important. It helps us share ideas, but I think for people who have come across the concept and go, yeah, I could do this, but I don't know if I have the confidence to do it, like it can be a really important space to help people get them across the line to actually launching. And then there's kind of the community level at a local level. So I've set up a party kit, so I've got my cups and my plates, but how do I get people to actually use them? This is really hard, and it's really shown me how disconnected our communities are. And it's only through things like party kits or sharing libraries or repair cafes that people are starting to make those connections again, really. Particularly if you don't work where you live, or you don't have children, it can be really hard. And so what we've been working on a lot in the last year is helping members regrow their community connections. So like, who should you go and talk to about your party kit? How can you work with other organisations to get more people to use your party kit? And I think that it's taken me a long time. So I've been running mine since 2019. And it's only really this year maybe that I've had multiple kits out every weekend. And that is partly because in the last year I've made a real effort to actually go and be in physical spaces, like going to People Planet Pipe meetings, going to Parents for Future meetups, and going to council meetings. Like, just being in physical spaces has been so important to get more people using my party kit.
And Charlotte, in terms of no crap parties, like, do you have an aspiration to kind of grow this into a kind of a network community?
Possibly. I mean, I haven't created any sort of community space where people can kind of come together online yet. It might happen. I'm just kind of mindful of time and how much it does take quite a lot to build a space and make sure it's active. Although I think there would be quite a bit of activity on there if I did do it. So yeah, it's kind of a time thing for me, to be honest, because yeah, got a job to do and children to look after and everything else. But there is already, it feels like there already is a community just bubbling away there, because I've got a WhatsApp group of some ambassadors who are people who've kind of stuck their hand up and said that they want to kind of be ambassadors in their community, and they're, you know, ranging from people who are organising toy swaps and being really quite proactive, to people who are maybe just quietly having conversations with their friends and their family and their kind of wider network. So quite a range of people in there. Some people have got businesses and they're kind of helping to promote it through their businesses. So there's a bit of a community kind of growing there with people who want to be proactive. And then I think, you know, on Instagram particularly, there feels like there's a growing community of, you know, I'm seeing the same people popping up and commenting and sharing ideas and stuff. So I think there's definitely potential for something a little bit more connected. But yeah, I don't know what the next step is on that, to be honest.
How are you both at the moment managing both like the emergent nature of this work? So both of your stories is like very full of possibility, and just letting it unravel and kind of following it as and where it needs to go, with funding. Like, how are you managing to keep these things going that need a lot of time, a lot of effort, in a world that is actually quite difficult to secure funding for these kinds of approaches?
Do you want to go first, Isabelle?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm curious to hear.
We spend very little money. So last year our costs were about £2,000. So that's mainly paying for the website, some software I use, that kind of thing. We did get a grant from my local council, so I bought more equipment. But otherwise we survive from income from the party kit that I run in Winchester, which is the only one that's owned by the CIC. All the other party kits are run independently. Donations, sometimes things like speaking fees as well will help top it up. But it is a challenge, and it works at the moment because everyone who works on the network works for free. So I work for free, our board all work for free, my partner in Australia works for free, and we do it because we're passionate about it. And I think it's nice to do something that gives you a huge sense of purpose. And I've met people that I would never ever have met doing this work, and both locally and internationally. But yeah, funding, like having an ongoing sustainable funding strategy is a big challenge for us. Yes.
And the same question, Charlotte? Yeah,
so I spent I did a crowdfunder earlier in the year, and I raised about £1,600, which was brilliant. So that kind of covered a lot of the costs that I'd already spent on things like website and email tools and whatnot, and you know, a bit of print and things. And then I went through another, because I am now set up as the Party Pack Kick. Yay. But I wasn't, and I went through a local organisation called Future Fixes, who did a lottery application for me. So I got just under £10,000, which basically covers some of my time for the next year, which is brilliant. But the reality is it does not cover barely any of the time that I spend. So, you know, like you said, Isabelle, I'm kind of so passionate about it and I really care about it. So I don't mind too much that I'm doing it for free, but I also have to be careful about how much time I dedicate, because the reality is that I'm a marketing consultant as my kind of paid job, and that has taken a massive backseat, and I really need to make sure I am getting work that I'm paid for. So yeah, it's kind of a balancing act between, you know, what can I do, volunteering my time to do, versus what, you know, where do I want to be paid for it. So I'm trying to find funding to cover a day a week of my time, so that I can do that. And I, to be honest, probably spend about 2 days a week overall doing this. The other thing I'm looking at is partnerships. So now that you know, the audience that we've got has grown significantly, I'm kind of seeing 10,000 as like a decent audience size to be able to then go to people and say, like, you know, would you sponsor a newsletter? Would you sponsor something? But obviously choosing who you're going to get into bed with, you've got to be very careful when you're talking about low waste. But I do have some very exciting partnerships, although none of these first ones are actually giving any money, but I'm sort of making friends with them. And then I'm going to kind of go back and be like, look, would you sponsor a newsletter or whatever to try and get something?
You sound like you've both got you've obviously both come from a kind of a marketing digital e-commerce background as well, you said. What would you say to somebody who like has an idea that they think they would like to build like you guys have done, but is really intimidated not only by the fact that it's really impossible to fund or hard to fund, but also maybe thinks they don't have all the skills that they would need to set up an organization and run the finances and build the website, and like what advice would you give to them, Charlotte?
It's a really great question. I would say like, don't let that be a blocker, because you can start something really small just with an Instagram page or a Facebook group and your local community. It could be that you know, like you've got an idea and you just post it in a local Facebook group and have a coffee morning where you chat to people who are interested in the same thing, and you might find that there's people who have the skills that you need to complement who are also really into the idea. So I think kind of don't like aim for the big complicated thing. Just think, what's the first small step that you can take that is manageable within the skills and the time and the experience that you've got, to just take one step in the right direction. Because I think that's, you know, like the idea of doing something all singing or dancing feels too much, but actually just putting one message on Facebook or something like that is an easy thing to do, to just start the ball rolling. And then I think the other thing I've really learned, which is kind of a motto that I've always had, but has really paid off this last year, is like, don't ask, don't get.
Yeah.
And like, I have asked for all sorts of things over the last year. I've messaged people and like, you know, been quite like brazen about wanting stuff, like from crowdfunding money to like, can you write an article in the Times? And people say yes. And if you don't ask, you will not get. So you have to ask.
Gav's a big believer in ask for forgiveness, not permission, I think, as you say, Gav. Is that right?
Well, I think I don't think I've asked that big, so that's great. I need to dream bigger.
Yeah.
I need to go for bigger asks. Like it's in I guess on that sort of theme, Isabelle, do you, on that sort of idea of advice of what to step into, in your experience, would you say it is better to do something that's very place-based in your local community, or would you, I mean, did you start in your local community with a kit, or did you start online with a page?
I did actually run a party kit for quite a while.
Okay.
I think it depends on what it is. I think that you will get more instant joy doing something in your local community. You will meet real people and you'll take real action and you'll see ripples happening. And I've certainly seen that recently, where I was involved in Winchester Green Week last month, and we did some things, and already there's been ripples off that. And it's much more instant, and it can be much more low tech than trying to run a national or international movement. But saying that, I still run the Party Kit network off the original spreadsheet that I started 6 years ago. Like, we are not high tech in any sense. So yeah, it doesn't have to be all singing or dancing. And like Charlotte said, ask people. So when we first set up as a CIC, I was like, oh, what are we going to do about an accountant? So I just asked in a group, and someone volunteered her time. For the last 5 years, she's done our end of year accounts. And we've never met. We had one Zoom call, like, that's all. And then I just email her the stuff and she's done it. So like, if you don't ask, you won't. But it's and hopefully, if you're doing an action that you are passionate about, other people will be passionate about it and they'll want to help you.
Definitely.
I guess I come back there. What I come back to there is that point where I personally actually find that ask uncomfortable, and that ask in the WhatsApp group uncomfortable. It's definitely something I need to challenge myself with. Is there any other tips around that? Like, is it literally just find someone and ask, or do you look? Yeah, do you go and look for something that would serve that problem? Or
I think action you're taking needs to solve a problem, and you need to be really clear about what that is. And once you've, like, I didn't set out to set up a network. Like, I just came across a problem and I was like, oh, I could do something about this. And I think and it would have been very easy to have diluted our message and say included party bags, or included like we were very clear that our party kit network is about reusable cups and plates. Yes, okay, some kits have other bits, and we often talk about other aspects of parties, but our mission is very clear that we want to displace single-use items. And I think being very focused makes it easier for people to understand what you're talking about and what action you're asking them to take, but hopefully that they can then tell someone else about it because it's very clear, if that makes sense.
And does that make it easier to see maybe where you're going as well? Like, because you've gone from like this tiny idea through to this massive, both into the global collectives and networks. Like, can you just continue doing what you're doing for a while now, as long as you can finance it and let this thing go? Or do you feel like there's bits you've got to add onto this in the next few years, or is there some grand plan?
I have to be very careful. I get really easy distracted by shiny things. I'm like, oh, I had this idea, like I'll go and do that, but I don't really have time for that at the moment. So I have to, very carefully put things in the car park. I think my focus for this year is very much, one, helping people who have a party kit get their party kit used more, and the other part is looking at how we build a sustainable funding strategy, with the view that it could be my job. But from a kind of what we've built, allowing people to connect with kits and to get started with kits, I feel like at the moment we have built enough. We don't necessarily need to add to that to still have impact. And like, new people are joining every week, all sorts of surprises pop up, and I feel like I don't want to dilute our message by making it more complicated.
Yeah, I'm similar in that I'm very impatient and I like to do things now. So I have an idea, I'm like, I'm just going to do it. The other day I sat down at my desk and I was like, I really need to organise my time. I'm going to do a to-do list of all of the things. I'm going to prioritise it. And then I wrote like one thing on the to-do list and was like, oh, I'm just going to do that now. Just forgot about the rest of it. So yeah, I have to have a bit of discipline as well, or I can go off doing something random. But I also kind of have quite confidence in my intuition. I've been in marketing for a long time now. I kind of know, and one of the things I like about kind of working on my own on this, to be honest, is that I don't have to spend time consulting with other people or getting their buy-in. I'm like, I know this is a good idea, it's worth doing, so I'm going to just do it. And it means that I can move fast, which I like. But I think for the future, I would like to broaden out from kids' parties to just broader gifting. So I'm not in a rush to kind of dive into that, but I think that's a natural segue. And I think, but staying in the kind of gifting lane of more sustainable gifting, because it's obviously a big issue.
And there's been there was a conversation last night at the Conduit with Ellie, and there's a lot of discussion on there about the power of social media and how we use social media to grow this movement. And I think at Reaction we do use it in a bit of an odd way. We don't really think of it much from a marketing sense. We just show these pictures of people having great times. What was the role in social media going from that idea and that first few people signing the pact or getting kits to the now? Like, was that the marketing route, or the largest part of the marketing route?
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without social media. Well, I wouldn't have discovered the concept in the first place, but we wouldn't have. So I basically posted in loads of local plastic-free community groups, like Facebook groups, and that's how we found our first members. And the partnership in Australia came through someone, Erin found me on Instagram and just DM'd me. So yeah, we absolutely would not be here if it had not been. It's mainly Facebook and Instagram were key for us. And even now we don't spend any money on marketing at all.
Yeah, same. I think there's two sides to it for me. It's one, it's like a tool that you can reach millions of people with potentially. And what's kind of interesting, and I've learned over the last 6 months is that people love just the stories and the examples of what other people are doing. And so that's kind of my main focus really for the social content moving forward, is like just spotlighting exactly what different parents have done for their parties, because they're all doing them in slightly different ways. Because the more people can see that it's been done and it was great, and the screenshots of WhatsApp messages from other parents saying like how much they loved it, it gives them that confidence to do it themselves and that it's not weird. So there's the sharing of stories and the reaching people. But then for me as well, it's also it's really motivating for me, because and it makes me want to keep going. Because, for example, we had I put a post up about 2 weeks ago about this family's party that they did, and like the comments on it have been amazing. Like people are just so positive, and it drives me on thinking like this is, you know, really people need this. So it's really motivating for me and other people. And that one post, has added 2,500 followers. And that's a quarter of all of our followers from one post, which is mental. But, you know, it just goes to show that people love it, and it gives you the potential to reach more people. So, yeah, I think it's the main channel. And the other thing actually is that, you know, I keep an eye on who's following, and whenever I get a blue tick person following, I have a look, and that's how I got the Times article, because I spotted this woman followed, and I was like, oh, she's a journalist. I'm just gonna so I just DM'd her on Instagram, and that's how it came about. And I've done that with various journalists, and obviously most of them haven't turned into that, but that one did. So keep asking, and it's a nice way to connect with people. But I've also got a very exciting person who I've connected with, who messaged me on Instagram from a very, very big organisation, who is potentially interested in doing something together, which would be huge. So if that comes off, that's another tick for social media.
I mean, what you've both created is like, it's insane, really, considering the costs you've just explained. Obviously, that's been created with a lot of energy and time. Do you find that you have to step back at times to reflect, or do you find that you reflect on what you're doing, or do you feel like you're kind of in it so much that that's hard to do? Isabelle?
Yeah, it's hard to step back. I do have a couple of one-to-one buddies, which has been quite critical. So Becca is one of them from Reaction. And that when you have to stop and explain what you're doing and why to someone, that's incredibly helpful, particularly when you spend a lot of time working on your own. But that's across anything, not just starting a movement. I think the other thing is it's really hard not to do it all the time, because it's just on your phone. And also because we have members in multiple time zones, I will get emails all the time. It's really hard not to do that all the time. I have currently solved that by getting myself a job 2 days a week, so I can't work on it for 2 days. But so I'm seeing it as a little fire break, and then we'll get back into it. Yeah, it's hard though.
Yeah, I try to stop and reflect from time to time, and I think having those conversations with various people, like, you know, Future Fixers, who helped me get the funding, you know, I had a chat with them the other day, and she, you know, because the funding came through them, we're going to have to report back through them, so she wanted an update on how things are going, and that, you know, that's makes me pause, and then, you know, I've got to tell her what I'm doing with the money that she's helped us get. So so that's good. And you know, when you get feedback from people, it's always a good time to kind of pause and reflect and think about how you can overcome problems. So yeah, those conversations are key. But yeah, you're right, the big challenge is sitting on the sofa in the evening with your phone and like scrolling through Instagram and stuff, and it's not the most healthy habit. So trying to create better habits around that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Super inspiring. I mean, I've always, like, every time, Isabelle, you pop another pin in the map in some faraway country, like, my mind is blown. It's
yeah, me too. Well, I still get excited about when people join the UK, so it's it's even more exciting when the week that we had India and Mexico join in 1 week, like, what's happened?
Very cool. Also, I just want to say, like, you know, Isabelle, I spoke to Isabelle very, very early on, probably at the end of last year, about what she was doing and for some advice and stuff. And I think just finding you, Isabelle, was like a massive inspiration, because I was like, oh, you've done this. Like, this is a thing. This is the kind of thing that you can do. Like, it's a possibility. And to know that you'd already kind of created that network, and that you were also somebody that I could kind of drop a message to and ask for advice, has just been amazing. So thank you. And also, I think it's like, you know, that's what you've got to find. You've got to find the other people who are in your space, who you can sort of support each other. And, you know, I think that really helps, to know that you're not alone. Yeah.
That's got to be the message to finish on. Well on brand. Does anyone else want to ask some questions? Because there's only a few of us, so Rob or Katie or Heather, anyone's got anything that's come up, or has anyone got an ask? I'm going to go away from this and ask for loads more.
I was just going to say that I've scribbled down some really great messages from everything that you've said. Charlotte, I thought that the party pack, I went on and signed it while we were online, and yeah, the website looks great. I think that there's some really good parallels with what the smartphone-free childhood people are talking about, and the way that they're doing it as well. So I think this as a model, I think it's great.
I may have copied them.
Fair play, if it's not broken. But yeah, no, I took away, like, I think for people who are struggling to get started on something, what you said about what's the problem that you're happy to stand on a soapbox and rant about is just perfect. Like, that's it in a nutshell. That's how you can get started. And I was thinking about this thing about social norms and how they're hard to go against. But actually, if you sort of, rather than trying to go against, if you just show another way, which is what you've done, both of you, I thought that was really interesting. And Isabelle, your kind of realization that you need to be in physical places, I thought was really interesting. And that's definitely something that Gav and I have been thinking a lot about, the Reaction crew, and like how we can get more members out more, if you know what I mean. And obviously that's the idea of the film, is to be out there in place. And yeah, the messages that come up often, but you can't hear them often enough. Start small, ask for what you need. And I think, yeah, brilliant session. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. That's a beautiful wrap up. I'm not going to say anything else.
I didn't intend it like that. I just was, I don't know. Yeah.
It is. I think it's yeah, it's very aligned with what we are all doing, isn't it? And I think that's what's beautiful about these calls is, you know, for people watching it back as well, is that kind of being able to see that the actions are happening in lots of different places, and that it doesn't have to be big. It can be as small as you can make it, and eventually, even if it's not you that picks it up, you know, you've started that ripple, and it might be someone else that picks up the bigger thing. But yeah, I think it's inspiring. Thank you very much for joining us. We have an actionism rule, which is that we always finish on time, because people have to go off and do many other shiny things. So thank you very much both for joining us. Gav, I don't know if you want to say anything else?
I just want to say thank you, and it's always great to speak to Isabelle. That's the first time we've had a really good chat, Charlotte. But I just leave these conversations with loads more ideas, which is dangerous. But I do leave them thinking like really deeply about the work that we're all doing, and how it's so interconnected, and how we can learn so much from each other. It's great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and it's been a really lovely chat. So yeah, hopefully we'll create some more ripples.
Yeah, let's get some ripples going. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Katie and Rob, as well.
Thank you.
Bye.